Hello class, let's talk about gross domestic product or GDP. One of the most important points to understand about calculating GDP is the importance of adjusting for prices. Let's take a look at the following data to see why this is so important. This is a very simplistic economy. It only produces hot dogs and hamburgers. And we're going to measure the production of this economy over 3 years, 2001, 2002, 2003. So, by multiplying the units, which is the quantity, times the price of each of the products, and then adding them, we should be able to get the nominal GDP for each year. These are the calculations that we see right here in the bottom of this chart. We have 2001, we have $1 per hot dog, which is the price, times 100 hot dogs which were produced. And the same thing for the hamburgers, $2 times 50. And so that gives us a nominal GDP of $200. If you do this same type of calculation for 2002 and 2003, we see that the GDP goes from 200 to 600, and then it goes to $1,200. Remember that GDP is measured in terms of a currency, whatever currency belongs to the country that you're measuring. Since this is we're studying economics in the United States, we are measuring it in dollars. So, let's see what is happening in this data. What we see is happening here is that from 2001 to 2002, we have a 200% increase. How do we get that? Simple. We take the 600 minus the $200 from the first year and divide it by 200. We then multiply this times 100 to get a percent change. Remember, the percent change formula abbreviated is the new value minus the old value divided by the old value times 100. So this equals to 400 divided by $200 times 100 equals 200%. Basically, it's saying that the economy tripled in production. Similarly, we can see from these numbers that from 2002 to 2003, the economy doubled in value. If you do the same calculation, you'll see how I got that 100% increase. So, to summarize, we have our economy growing by 200% from 2001 and 2002, and then the economy growing by 100% from 2002 and 2003. So everything seems great in this economy. However, it is easy to see why these numbers are overestimated. Let's go back to the data. First thing that we notice from 2001 to 2002, in terms of production, which are my quantities, is that in none of these numbers do we see what we see in the nominal GDP data, which is a 200% increase. Let's look. Hot dogs, for example, only increased by 50 units, which is roughly 50% of the first year. And the hamburgers doubled. But you see, none of these equal to 200%. Actually, it's way under that. What the nominal GDP information data is calculating is not only the increase in production, but it's also catching the increase in prices. So we need a way to be able to eliminate the changes in prices. So we have to figure out the real information. And this is why we need to figure out our real GDP. Our real GDP is our production adjusted for prices. In other words, what we are trying to do is trying to eliminate any changes in prices from the calculations that we do for GDP. So in this very simple example, with only 2 products being produced, it turns out to be rather simple. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is figure out a base year. This is the year that we're going to compare everything to. Okay? This is basically arbitrary, meaning it doesn't really matter what year you choose as long as you adjust the prices to that year. So, for simplicity, we're going to pick 2001 as our base year. What does this mean? We go to our second step. Adjust the prices. Let's go back to our original data. What adjusting the prices means is that since our base year is 2001, we are going to cancel out any changes in prices in 2002 and 2003. And basically, we're just going to use one price, the price of the base year. So instead of having prices change, this price will always be $1. And instead of having the price of hamburgers change, this price will always be $2. Now the prices are adjusted. Now the only thing that we see changing is our production. The prices are gonna stay steady, adjusted. So we redo our calculation for GDP. By redoing the calculations, we see that the only thing that is changing now is the quantities. Notice, for hot dogs, the price will always be $1. And for hamburgers, the price will always be $2. So now, the only thing that is changing are my quantities. So let's do the calculations. For the first one, we already had said that 2001 was my base year, so nothing should change. And in fact, 100 plus 2 times 50 is the same thing that we got for our nominal GDP, which is 200. Always double check your work because this is how it should be. For the base year, the numbers should not change. The second number will give us 150 plus 200, which equals 350. And finally, 200 plus 300 equals 500. This is what our real GDP looks like. Let's compare these numbers to what we had originally with our nominal GDP. 200, 600, 1200. These numbers, the new numbers for real GDP, have been adjusted for prices. Hence, they're going to be lower numbers. And if we do the calculations for percent change, we will see that these numbers are also going to be adjusted, and they will represent real growth in the economy, which is not the case for these numbers. This would be nominal. Let's check out what the real growth rates were. From 2001 to 2002, we have 350 minus 200 divided by 200 times 100. And from 2002 and 2003, we have 500 minus 350 divided by 350. Notice, these numbers represent real growth because they are calculated from real GDP. Compare them to the numbers above, 200 and 100%. The economy did in fact grow, but not by the percentages that were shown with the nominal growth rate. They grew by smaller amounts, but they still show growth. And by using this method of adjusting for prices, we're able to get real information about the economy.